Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador recommended on Wednesday the disappearance of the Organization of American States. The Israeli military renewed its strikes on the Gaza Strip, leaving 3 people killed and 10 others injured in the last 24 hours. Protests continue in Pakistan following the arrest of former Prime Minister Imran Khan to answer for corruption charges. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, recommended on Wednesday the disappearance of the Organization of American States. During his usual press conference, the Mexican head of state described the organization as useless and dysfunctional. He also pointed out that the OAS has done nothing more than endorse all authoritarian acts against legitimate, legal, and popular governments in Latin America. Last week, President López Obrador questioned the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, pointing out that its body does not exercise its duties with professionalism and acts in a biased and unreliable manner.
Look at the interference of this organization that is at the service of creative interest groups. I recommend that the OAS disappear, which is useful for nothing. I mean, is the OAS useful for anything? Do you know of something good that the OAS has done? The only thing it has done is endorsing all the authoritarian acts against legitimate legal governments popular in Latin America, nothing else. It's what the OAS has done. Then, they don't have any kind of authority or moral authority or political authority.
In addition, President López Obrador discussed the possibility of sending a reform to submit the Mexican judicial and ministerial branches of government to an election.
Because of the anti-democracy, because of the similarity, because of the impositions, because of the corruption that prevailed, there are those of the conservative bloc with their now supreme conservative power, which is located in the judiciary, in the court. But this can be remedied and this can be solved with the democratic method. That is why I'm going to send an initiative to reform the Constitution so that judges, magistrates, and ministers to be elected by the people. Because of the anti-democracy, because
The presidents of Mexico and the U.S., Andrés López Obrador and Joe Biden, respectively talked by telephone on Tuesday to address the issue of migration from a humanitarian perspective. On his Twitter profile, López Obrador indicated that he spoke for about an hour with President Biden, and they reaffirmed their commitment to continue working together on issues such as migration from a more humane dimension, drug and arms trafficking above all, cooperation for the welfare of the poorest peoples of the continent. The Mexican president stressed that the United States and Mexico are good neighbors and friends. The White House, for its part, reaffirmed the importance of improving bilateral cooperation on migration management. Both presidents also acknowledged positive developments countering fentanyl and weapons traffic. In Argentina, social organizations that make up the Unidad Piquetera movement marched to the National Ministry of Social Development on Tuesday to protest against the adjustment policies of the International Monetary Fund. From Buenos Aires, our correspondent Carolina Silvestre brings us more.
The activists demonstrated under the slogan, "We can't stand hunger any longer, stop the cuts to soup kitchens."
it is in the midst of this unbearable situation that Minister Tolosa Paz continues to cut social programs. She has cut food in the month of April to half of the soup kitchens where 11 million people eat. Only half the amount of food arrived to the kitchens, and where it arrived, it is sold in very bad conditions.
The Unidad Piquetera bloc demands a meeting with the authorities of the Ministry of Social Development due to a decrease in social plans.
They don't give us meat, they only give us processed food. They don't give us fresh products. So, among all the comrades, we have to try to contribute a little bit to buy the cheapest things, which are chicken wings or chicken giblets, which today are not cheap, so we can keep the soup kitchens open and try to give the best to the neighbors and to the comrades who come to pick food up, because not only comrades from our organization come looking for food, but also neighbors, retired people, pensioners, who don't have enough money to pay for it.
They also demand the creation of genuine jobs for the unemployed.
We have presented this to the Ministry of Development, to the Ministry of Labor, to the Ministry of Housing, a housing construction plan that also allows to build housing, which is very much needed, and that the workers, the comrades, have a job. Unfortunately, the government ignored this. We presented this plan almost 2 years ago. Then we say that they need to assist the people who have the basic need of being able to live, to sustain themselves, and they don't have to assist them with rotten noodles.
Controlling inflation is another request of the sector.
We are facing a brutal adjustment suffered by all workers because inflation is up the income of retirees, of workers, and also of those who have such a program, not to mention those who don't even have access to one, who are many and who would need such a program. The government is adjusting even in the sub-kitchens. It has removed people like the ones here, people who have updated their information correctly as was required by the minister, as they had to, and nevertheless they have been dropped from the program.
That is why the plan of struggle will continue if they do not get the answers from the Fernandez administration.
Carolina Silvestre, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can follow us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. In the United States, a jury found former President Donald Trump guilty of sexual abuse and defamation against writer John Carroll after a nearly 2-week trial in federal court. The 9-member jury ruled that the businessman did not commit rape per se, but found him liable for abuse, another form of assault, for which he was ordered to pay Carroll a $5 million compensation. Carroll filed a civil complaint against Trump in November of last year, and during the trial she claimed that he had raped her in a fitting room of a department store in New York City in 1996. While some political analysts view the verdict as counterproductive in the face of the coming presidential election, especially as far as the female electorate is concerned, others point out that the faith professed by the businessman's followers is so strong that it will remain intact despite his guilty verdict. Meanwhile, Trump insists on his innocence and has vowed to appeal Carroll's case. And on Wednesday, U.S. Republican Congressman George Santos has been arrested in New York on federal criminal charges. Santos faces 13 charges including wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and making false statements to the House of Representatives. U.S. Attorney Brian Pease said Santos, who was elected to Congress last year, based much of his campaign on claims that turned out to be false, including that he had worked at Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, was a graduate of New York University and Baruch College, had Jewish ancestry, and that his mother died in the World Trade Center terrorist attacks. Pease said Santos also used political contributions to line his pockets and illegally applied for unemployment benefits during the pandemic. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy was reluctant to comment on the matter, saying that in the U.S. you are innocent until proven guilty, but many of Santos' congressional colleagues called for his resignation. Santos is facing an investigation by the House of Ethics Committee, which voted unanimously in March to investigate a series of allegations against him. On Wednesday in France, the General Confederation of Labor, the CGT, held a rally near the Maison de la Chimie in the 7th arrondissement of Paris, where the Casino Group is holding its general meeting. The CGT convened this mobilization with employees of the Casino Group in Paris on the sidelines of their annual general meeting, with the objective of expressing their concerns about wages, job maintenance, and wage increases, as explained the union's representative of the CGT Central, Ali Elouet. This company, which employs 200,000 people worldwide and a quarter of them in France, has reported some financial problems that attempt the security of its employees. The trade union representative pointed out that even if official figures are not known because they are done in secret, there are daily workers facing contract termination, and he pointed out that what concerns most today is the maintenance of employment. Turkish government officials denounced on Wednesday the United States' interference in the lead-up to the nation's presidential election scheduled for May 14th. In this sense, Turkish Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu stated that the U.S. would try, if necessary, to orchestrate a coup during the election following the failed attempt in July 2016. He further added that the international media is attempting to sway the election in favor of their preferred outcome, casting President Recep Tayyip Erdogan as a divisive figure. Likewise, the Interior Minister accused Washington and other Western powers and the international media coverage of fueling the already heated political atmosphere. On Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov denounced that the United States has begun to form what they call a Free Syrian Army, in which Daesh terrorists participate in order to destabilize the Arab nation. The head of the Russian diplomacy pointed out that the city of Raqqa would be the center of action of this para-army, which would be mainly composed of members of local tribes, extremists of Daesh, and other terrorist and criminal organizations. Lavrov also explained they have already had some meetings with Syrian military colleagues to discuss the issue and have agreed on a scheme of joint actions in the face of the challenge. On Wednesday, foreign ministers of Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Syria held a four-way meeting in Moscow. At the meeting, the participants exchanged views on efforts to normalize relations between Damascus and Ankara, as well as cementing peace and stability in the region. Also on the agenda were discussed issues like counter-terrorism, the political processes, and humanitarian matters, including the voluntary, safe, and dignified return of Syrians to their homeland. After the gathering, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov thanked his counterparts for coming to Moscow, noting that the meeting in itself was an achievement, as it took some time and a lot of efforts to convene. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Israeli military renewed strikes on the Gaza Strip on Wednesday. In two consecutive drone airstrikes in less than 24 hours, 3 people were killed and 10 others injured, one of them in critical condition, after being injured with shrapnel from the missile attack. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, on the first airstrike that occurred on the town of Absan, east of the city of Khan Yunis, a local farmer was killed while another was injured. The second drone attack happened when a warplane fired 2 missiles at a site east of Rafah, in the south of the Gaza Strip, killing 2 people and injuring 9 others. In the midst of it all, Israeli forces detained 28 Palestinians, including 6 children, from several areas in the occupied West Bank. Likewise, more detentions were carried out in other cities such as Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, among others. At least 6 people were killed in a shooting attack near a synagogue in Tunisia on Wednesday. According to the country's Interior Ministry, the attack, which took place in Jerba, left 3 security officers killed, one of whom died in hospital after sustaining a serious injury. Likewise, 2 visitors, a 30-year-old Tunisian and a 42-year-old French national, were also among the victims of the shooting. The attack came amid an annual pilgrimage to the island of Jerba that draws hundreds of Jews from Europe and Israel. La Ghariba is Africa's oldest synagogue, a revered and iconic location at the heart of the island. It was built on the site of a Jewish temple that is believed to date back almost 2,000 years. Protests continue in Pakistan on Wednesday following the arrest of former Prime Minister Imran Khan to answer for corruption charges. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan on Wednesday appeared before a special court at the capital's police station a day after his arrest sparked the start of mobilization across the country. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party members and supporters have continued to demonstrate while Pakistan's anti-corruption watchdog on Wednesday sought 14 days remand for former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Local media reported to death in those clashes, while police said 945 lawbreakers and miscreants had been arrested in Punjab alone, the country's most populous province. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan was in office from 2018 to April 2022 when he was ousted after a no-confidence motion in Parliament. He served 4 of his 5-year term. Initially, Khan attributed his ouster to a U.S. move to punish him for his closeness to Russia, but later he claimed that the former head of the Pakistan Army, Qamar Bajwa, had conspired with the opposition to oust him. If Khan were to be convicted on any of the charges filed against him, he would be disqualified to hold public office, which would be a setback for the former cricketer-turned-politician. General elections in Pakistan are scheduled for next November. Khan is the highest-rated political leader in the country, despite the allegations raised against him. Internal political crises are common in Pakistan, where no prime minister has just served a full term and where the military has ruled for almost half of the country's history. On Wednesday, a United Nations report confirms that fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitary rapid support forces has already left 550 dead and more than 2,500 wounded. The United Nations also states that since the beginning of these conflicts in April, more than 700,000 people have been displaced. The international organization reiterated that the situation is tragic because in addition to the harshness of the fighting, volunteers are facing shortages of water, food and fuel, as well as limited access to transportation and other basic services such as electricity and telecommunications. Multiple truces have been declared since mid-April, but they have been systematically broken. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.